Welcome to Grace to Endure. In this video, I'm actually going to have Susan back on and she's going to be talking to us about food. I'm wanting to get your mind thinking a little differently. Over the last 100 years or so, the culture around the world really has changed, but especially in America, where we depend on the grocery store for really all of our food, and we depend on city water for pretty much all of our water. At least a lot of people do. And so I want to get our minds thinking a little bit differently so that we do not have no skill and no knowledge before the end of the 3.5 year time frame when the Antichrist is going to set up the mark of the beast and we will not be able to buy and sell. We need to have some kind of knowledge of, what do we do for water? What do we do for food? And if you just have never thought that way, then that could turn out to be not a very good or helpful thing. And so you really wouldn't be in a position to help the hungry or, give water to the thirsty or help the people that are sick if you just have no working knowledge of these things outside of stores. So I really want to just get us thinking along these lines and kind of getting us just knowing things that have been lost over the years because we don't live like this anymore where we need to live off the land at all. So I want to draw our attention to Daniel chapter 8 and this time of plenty that is described, at least in a Western nation. In a Western nation that is described here in Daniel chapter 8 as being on the other side of the entire earth, it becomes great for a short time right before this beast kingdom is set up. And in other videos, I explain the beast kingdom. That's not what this video is about. But I just want you to consider that if there is a time of plenty, we do not want to waste that time. We want to use that time to gain skills, gain knowledge, and gain experience in these kinds of things. Okay, so I just want to show you real quick in this slide, why am I talking about this issue? Why do I find this to be a concern and something worth our time and even investing some money into? I don't suggest going crazy on that, but definitely a little bit so that you can learn skills and gain experience and become more knowledgeable in these things. The reason why is because just the answer to this question that I have at the top of the screen, will there be enough food in the years just prior to Jesus returning? And the answer is no, especially for the Christians, okay, because we won't be able to buy and sell. We know that for sure. Look at Revelation 7:14 and 16. It literally talks about those coming out of the Great Tribulation, the Christians specifically that come out of the Great Tribulation, and the comfort that they're being told is you will no longer hunger. So they were hungry. We've talked about that when we talked about water. Okay, so we'll be thirsty, we'll be hungry, we'll be hot. It says the sun is going to be scorching us, okay? And so those are things that we can kind of, think about ahead of time. How can we lessen the burden if at all possible? And then look at Revelation 13:17. I've already talked about this in the previous slide. The mark of the beast during that 3.5 year time frame. No buying and selling, no stores for 3.5 years. And so that's something we need to consider. And then Matthew 25:35, during this time when there's not enough water, not enough food, you don't have access to hospitals, there's going to be people that are sick and we need to help them. There's going to be people that are hungry and we need to feed them. There's going to be people that are thirsty and we need to give them water. Now, we might store up all we want and have it stolen or taken, but if we have knowledge and experience, we can maybe find food another way. And that's what I'm trying to do, is just get us thinking along those lines and maybe being a little bit creative, a little more knowledgeable, and gaining a little more experience in these things. And that's why I have brought Susan along for the rest of this video, because she is more knowledgeable than me on this topic. So I hope that the tips that we give you are helpful and that you can start at least somewhere. So here with us again in this video series is Susan, and she is going to help us now learn a little bit more about food storage, and food prep if you want to keep it for longer amounts of time. So go ahead and get us started.
Well, historically, people have always had a way to preserve their food, whether it's salting or smoking their meats, drying their fruits and vegetables, culturing foods. like yogurt and kimchi, all your cheeses, kefir, kombucha, sauerkraut, pickles, sourdough bread, all these things extend the eating time for the food. The American Indian would make pemmican. Get a good recipe for pemmican. I think this is exciting because you can mix dried meats, dried berries, and fat and mix it together, put it in little bars. They carried it with them wherever they went.
Okay, so really we want you to just realize this can be done. It's been done for thousands of years, and every people group has been able to do this. So it's something that we can learn. Sadly, it's something we've forgotten. It's it's knowledge and skill sets and experience that we don't have, but we thankfully can write that, and so we can just grow in knowledge and try little experiments and try to get better at this.
Right.
Okay, so we've already discussed how we need to become a little more knowledgeable. Everyone used to do these things, and we just need to put it into practice and make time for it in our days. Number 2, we want to consider some short-term and some long-term storage methods in this video. And then number 3, I really want to talk about being a little more self-reliant. We know for a fact as Christians that for 3.5 years we will not be able to shop. So then that's kind of what we want to kind of aim for is our long term, for 3.5 years. If you couldn't shop, hopefully these ideas would be helpful. Yeah. And then number 4, it's not for you to decide if God's going to pick you to endure during this time frame. So just kind of ignoring it, pushing it into the future and being like, no, I won't do it. It's just, that's not okay. We've got to accept that God might call you to endure for this time. And I don't think the correct biblical attitude is like give up and just not even do anything. And then the command to endure is there. So in other words, just to give up and die would be to reject God's command to endure, at least trying to endure. Obviously, if it's your time to die, then it's your time to die. If you've done everything that you can, then that's totally different. But go ahead, Susan.
Well, we're all used to just going to the store every time we want something, and so what we're saying is we need to kind of break that thinking pattern. We're going to talk of some different methods that we can do to store food long and short term, but no method is easy. No method is perfect or right for everybody. Every method will take some effort. There's a learning curve usually, and there will be some cost involved to get any method started. But I think the idea is that we just get going.
Right. You got to start somewhere. Okay, so let's look at what's involved in each one of these. We're going to try to break that down for you and get you looking in the right direction and thinking the right way. Well, as we already said, you want to start somewhere, and so we're going to start with some simple ways of storing food more long term. First, a good way to start is with canned goods. If you want to start buying cans and marking when you bought them, looking at the expiration date, and make sure you rotate them. All the new canned goods that you get, make sure you put those at the back and bring the old ones forward so that you're not wasting anything. Also, make sure that you are stocking up on things that your family actually enjoys eating. Okay, so Susan, why beans and rice?
Well, beans and rice are a good staple. Together they do create a complete protein. So it may not be everything your body needs, but it will sustain you. And a lot of people will at least get started with this. I know I have a son who thinks he'll live on beans and rice, and he's a bachelor, and so maybe that's fine with him, but I'm thinking of feeding my children beans and rice, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that might not go all around, but it is a good start. And it's fairly easy and inexpensive to put up some really emergency food. If you store it properly, it can last a long time.
Okay, and the way to store it properly, you can look on YouTube on ways to store it properly. You can buy it already stored properly, or you can get
containers
and ways to
take the oxygen out. And you're going to have to research some of this.
And good food grade containers are at Publix in the bakery.
Yeah, you can ask for them or look for them. I mean, it's just a way that I got some for free.
You can get it for free, yeah. And then you have good food grade buckets in the bakery, and just ask them every time you go in at Publix, hey, do you happen to have any? And then just store those away. And then when you want to start putting it in, you of course need to research maybe on YouTube how to, get the oxygen out and all of that and seal it properly. and then you can keep things for a long time, for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, white rice is, it keeps longer. And beans, of course, they are easy to grow and they last a very long time as long as you don't get them wet or start the, you know, they stay dormant for very, like even thousands of years, I've heard. So beans are a good staple and a pretty simple way to go. Okay, what about grains and honey?
Well, wheat berries, and you got other grain berries, barley berries, and such, are a fairly nutritious food and a good way to store things. If you buy the wheat berries, be sure you get the heirloom variety, that it's not a mixture, and make sure they're vacuum sealed as berries, because you don't want to have the flour until you're ready to use it. You said maybe a month to use up your flour, so only grind a certain amount at a time. But if you put them in food grade containers, take the oxygen out, they will last a good long time. There's a lot of things that you can do with grains.
Exactly. And so another place you can get wheat berries from, and basically all this kind of stuff. It has so much stuff. Is Bread and Becker's. There's one in Georgia, I know, and you can buy in bulk. You can have it shipped to your house, or you can go to it and look around. It's just a really kind of cool store. You'll get inspired to do all kinds of things with bread, and so you need to, you know, have either buy it already stored properly from their store, or learn how to do that once again, and then to learn to make bread. It's going to take a little bit of time to figure out which recipes you like, so that the bread's not too hard, not too soft, you know, whatever your family likes. And you need to store, of course, the other ingredients involved if that's your plan. One of those that I use is honey. Honey never goes bad. If it starts to crystallize, you just warm it up. And once you warm it up, you want to make sure it's not that dark color, but that nice golden color that you see down here. And then it's good to go. You're back to being able to, you know, eat the honey. So it never goes bad. So you can long-term storage of honey is a really good idea. As far as milling it, you can buy, of course, electric mills, but you can also get hand mills, and there's every kind of, you know, expense. But make sure you look at reviews and get something medium to high quality, even if it costs more, just because you don't want to waste your money, because the cheap ones will just break. There is everything from literally a mortar and a pestle. Like I have a picture down there where you can just grind it, and everybody just, you know, a bunch of people do it in their own mortar and pestle. It'll take a little longer. Or you can literally even buy one that connects to a bike, and you can like bike in place, and it will mill your food. So there's lots of options out there. So you can research that and get busy making bread, or learning how to make bread so you can store this.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, gardening is actually the ideal way to have year-round food. It does come with some caveats, because there's a learning curve to growing anything. You do need to know your soil, your plants that you're growing, the critters or pests that may inhibit your garden. You do need to learn about the seasons. People that love gardening love it and just do wonderfully. Theoretically, if you're good at gardening, you could have year-round veggies for your family just by knowing what to plant at different seasons. If you add canning or some other freeze drying or whatever method to it, you could extend that even, or have extra to sell. But it will give you really fresh. I mean, there's nothing better than going out into the garden to pick the salad greens for your dinner. That's
Right.
You get
Right.
good quality that way.
Yeah, and also, you know, along the lines of the learning curve, there are things that I know. I have a sister who does quite a bit of gardening, and she uses all kinds of different methods to get rid of bugs without using, you know, bad chemicals on her
Right.
food. And so, you know, she uses like things that move in the wind so that it scares them away. She uses, you know, you can use fake owls, fake snakes, and move them around regularly. You can take, you know, laundry baskets that are the you know, soft kind, and like put them over top of your cabbages and your Brussels sprouts and the things that bunnies love to get into. You know, having dogs, that's going to keep down the squirrels and the rabbits and all that. You know, putting fencing around. You know, all that is part of the learning curve. So there is a bit of a learning curve, honestly, to all your plants. You got to learn the plant that you're trying to do. So one thing that I have personally seen that helps is If you just start with one kind or two kinds and then slowly branch out once you've gotten to know that, if you try to do a huge variety all at first, it might not go so well. You might get very discouraged.
Exactly.
And then, of course, good references down below.
Yeah, but all of us can do something.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you just get, maybe you're just really good at 3 different kinds of,
Right.
you know, vegetables.
You'd be saving.
Yeah.
Well, canning is a good option for short-term storage, and it's fairly easy to do. It's important to do it correctly because you can get botulism if you don't. But I'll tell you how I got started. I had a friend of mine. She called one day and she says, "You need to learn how to can." And she came over and she brought me all the equipment, the big pot, all the jars, the little thing. She brought me everything I needed. And she put me in her car and she said, "We're going out to Zellwood Farms." And they, you know, when you buy carrots, they're all these perfectly little, you know, rabbit carrots. They don't grow that way in the ground. They go crooked, and so they're called culls. All the ones that don't look pretty or fit in the little bags. And so farmers will buy culls to feed their animals or whatever. Well, we went out there and opened up the trunk, and they filled up the whole trunk for like $15.
Wow.
And we had all these carrots, and then we took them home. She took some, I took some, and she showed me step by step how to prepare them, going through the steps of heating. And the steps are important. You're going to have to go online or get somebody to help you. But canning is a good way to extend your garden. It's a good way to take advantage of sales. Again, it's relatively inexpensive, and once you've done it, you can do it anytime.
Yeah,
So
you know how you once you've learned it. And then also, didn't you mention that the process, though, does take some of the nutrients out, so it's not as high of quality.
like canned goods in general, whether you buy them off the shelf or you do it yourself, the heating process does destroy the enzymes and breaks down the food. That's how it lasts, you know, it's not alive anymore.
Right.
So it would be, for me, a second choice as far as food quality goes.
Right.
But you can have some, their cans are fairly heavy, so you're going to need some storage space, some shelving somewhere. Or if you have to move them around, if you're thinking of bugging out
Right.
or moving someplace, you got to think about the weight of the cans.
Yeah, and then now, of course, they are stackable, so that makes
Usually,
it very easy
yeah,
to store in a
right.
pantry and stuff. So, okay.
Investing in a deep freeze is also a good short-term type of storage. There is the initial investment, and of course you'll have power usage, but you can take advantage of good sales. You can freeze things from your own garden. I bought a half a cow once and a half of a pig, got them at a real good price because I was buying in bulk, and I was able to pack up my freezer and had foods for a year that I bought at last year's prices. So, and it is a better quality, probably not as good as your fresh garden, but better than your canning. Freezing is usually a pretty good quality. Obviously, you have to have electrical power or some type of power to power your freezer. And if the power goes out, ouch.
Yeah.
That can be very painful.
You're going to have to cook fast.
Yeah. I told my story of losing that opportunity one time. If you're going to freeze your own, there is some prep involved, and you would want to research, just like canning, you'd want to research proper methods of packaging the food. But either way, buying it or freezing it yourself is a good way to have a lot of good quality food around.
Okay, and what about freeze drying?
Well, freeze drying is different. They're not to be confused. Freezing is taking meats and vegetables, breads, whatever, and putting them in a deep freeze, properly prepared. Freeze drying is a method of removing the moisture and sealing it in a vacuum. And so this method, properly done, will keep food for 25 years. So, yeah. I mean, that's longer than I'm probably going to live.
And how nutritious is that?
It's probably the best quality because it's a quick method. You take it right from the field, you freeze dry it. There's no deterioration over the 25 years, and It is a good way to have a variety of foods. Campers are usually used to this because they buy the little meals.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy them as meals or individual foods. Once it's done, it's convenient. If you want to freeze dry for yourself, you can buy a freeze dryer and do it yourself.
Mm-hmm. And of course, they range in quality and price as well.
Yeah,
So.
of course, that's a bigger investment, but my son has one,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a bachelor. He puts up meals, little meat, veggies, and things. He puts them all in a pack, and then he's ready to go. And it is a process. It takes multiple hours to freeze dry, and then you've got to be there when it quits to package it right away in your sealed um, containers. So that is, you know,
Something to consider.
something to consider. So if you do it yourself, there's a little more involved in it. I had looked into it, but the freeze dryer is a good size, and I didn't really have enough counter space.
Right.
But
Something to look into.
right. So going on then, if you don't want to do your own freeze drying yourself with the packaging and such, you can buy already freeze dried food from multiple companies, and they're very popular now because people are aware that storing food is really important. So you can buy, like I said, the little packages of ready to go meals for travel and such. In my search, I wanted to buy individual foods, just fitting my diet. So the meals are convenient. They cost a little more. And I didn't like the additives. I wanted to have meat and vegetables and then just make the meals for myself. But either way, you can find, there's multiple companies out there that'll do it. And my favorite has become Thrive Life. After going through trying some gardening and some canning and some freezing, I've tried different things. For me, at my age and my abilities, the freeze drying is good. And there's no waste. All the prep is done for you. You don't have to peel and chop and debone and have the waste.
And it's good quality, so
it's-
and it can last for 25 years, right?
It lasts up to 25 years. And, it's ready to cook or eat, just out of the package. And we talked about the Mormons.
Yeah.
I don't know about their theology, but they're known for storing food. And I remember an interview during the COVID time. One of the directors of the food thing, they were asking him, did he have enough food? How much could he produce? Well, the Mormons not only individually store food, but they have gardens and orchards and farms all over the country. They have packing places. They have trucks and storage places. So they have a whole system. And he said he believed that they could not feed the country, but they could feed all of their Mormon members indefinitely because they had the whole system put together. And if you go to churchofjesuschrist.org or just look up the Mormon thing, you can find they do have stores. There's 2 in Florida where you could go. You can't buy a wide variety, but you can get your beans and rice and a couple of veggies, or you can buy online. Thrive Life I found is the best quality for me.
Okay. And then, just feel like I have to say this with the Mormons. Of course, we are not saying that we agree with their theology
Exactly.
or what they believe, but they do have a lot of knowledge on storing
Yes.
food.
Good reference.
So good reference for storing food only.
Well, fats and oils are essential for good health, but they don't have a long shelf life. Typically, even a good quality olive oil or such is only last 1 or 2 years. So you want to look at your dates and rotate them for sure. The only thing I have found for long-term getting fats is avocado trees because they have good quality fats. It's a good food that I eat a lot anyway. So getting some good avocado plants would be excellent. We have not had real good results, so you got to get the right kind for your climate, and your soil is just essential. Coffee is another item. I'm not a coffee drinker, but my husband is. And let me tell you, if things go down, he's going to want his coffee. So you can buy, obviously, instant coffee off the shelf. It will have an expiration date. But there are companies you can go online where you can buy, because instant coffee is freeze dry coffee. And so if they freeze dry it and store it correctly, it could last 25 years. So you can search for that and find it if you anybody in your family really has to have coffee. So otherwise it may start to lose its taste or whatever after time.
Okay, so then to just wrap it all up, we just want to remind you just that what we're really trying to show here is do something. Get started with something and be consistent and gain knowledge. Try to learn some of these skills and be thinking along these lines because it might come in very useful, especially if God has called you to endure through the end times.
Amen.